Okay, my name's Jude LaCava from Fox Sports, and you might say, what's a sports guy doing at a conference like this? I will explain, but I want to first off introduce our panel. Dr. Eric Greenman, founder, chief medical officer of iTel Companies. Eric. Marie Wesslehoft, president, co-founder of MSDx. And Neel Mehta, founder and chief strategy officer of EpiFinder Incorporated. If Joan can come in the room here a second, I just want to address, how many Cardinal fans do we have out there in the room? Any Arizona Cardinal fans? You know, Bruce Arians created a winning culture, a spirit, a dedication, and an energy to create a winning team. And I say that because in the short time I've known Joan, she has created an energy, a winning culture, and a dedication and persistence that is the driving force behind AZBio. And I would like for all of you to give Joan a round of applause. Her work and effort and dedication. On cue, Joan, very good. Excellent. Her work, she's the Bruce Arians of AZBio. Her work, dedication, persistence, driving force, and the ability to share and collaborate is what it is all about. I just texted George Post, by the way, who's a hero of mine, and I live by one simple motto that he said many years ago: silos subvert solutions. We are in an age of technology and sharing that can make such a huge difference. I'll tell you about Dorothy Foundation in a minute, but I want to start with addressing each panelist here and essentially looking at the role that you shape in the patient experience. And I'm going to start with Marie, brief description of your program and how you shape the patient experience. Marie, please.
Okay, thank you. First of all, it's great to be here, a part of this panel. My name is Marie Wesslehoft, president and co-founder of MSDx. We're a personalized medicine solution for brain diseases, and what that means is we're producing biomarkers to help monitor or diagnose neurodegenerative diseases. And so what's key to obviously to the patient, for us it's $1.3 trillion of healthcare spending. And so our goal is to provide tools, just as Dr. Ojo talked about, that can help manage the patient, make sure they're on the right therapy, and make sure that we also provide endpoints for pharmaceutical clinical trials.
And now I want to introduce to you Neel Mehta, who was kind enough a few minutes before our panel discussion here to show me EpiFinder. Explain the basic premise and how you encourage the patient experience.
Yeah, so hello everyone, good afternoon. I guess everyone is sleeping. Yeah, so we have a software application which we license to physicians and providers, and they use it when they see the patient so that their experiences with the patients are better and nicer. And that's how we are transforming how the healthcare operates, through the use of technology, through the use of data, and through the use of real-time communications.
And now our final panelist here, Dr. Eric Greenman, founder, chief medical officer, iTel Companies. Doctor?
Hi, good afternoon. So as a practicing physician, I've been working with patients for over 20 years in the Valley here, and patient communications grew out of initially emailing patients, and we knew that patients wanted options of being able to see their providers from multiple locations, and patients can't always get to their appointments. So we developed a video platform. iTel is focused on secure video for telehealth, and we've really worked on getting the flow of being able to make this very easy for patients to get online with any provider anywhere in the country. And we've kind of modeled it from growing out of my own practice. And that's where we've learned a lot of how do patients come on board. We developed software that there's really nothing for them to download. They just have to go online and get on with that physician. We built in screen sharing so that part of that patient experience is education. For them to be able to see their lab result in real time where you can explain that result to them, they can see it. We also help them sort out their medications so that they can see a tablet or understand what they're looking at. A lot of times patients don't even know those doses. And then we modeled their usual checkout experience so we can actually do a virtual video transfer for them to be able to reschedule their appointments and make that process very easy for them.
My name is Jude LaCava, and I think it's interesting. When I walked in the room, Roger, who used to work in the media, said, "What are you doing here?" I don't blame you. Well, I'm here because I represent the layperson. And anytime somebody, in my case, my mom as a teenager had advanced breast cancer and basically donated her life to the National Institute of Health back in the 70s. She became a human guinea pig. And somewhere down the line, after I lost her at the age of 20, after this 6-year battle, I pledged that I would join the fight. Years later with Dorothy Foundation, we've done that. Now I have to tell you, I don't represent the science and math community. In 10th grade, I donated my baby Cayman, which was a small little alligator in a jar of formaldehyde, to my biology teacher, and went from a C- to a C+. That's how I got through bio, but I focused on arts and sports. But I also realized that I could help on this very basic premise. Knowledge is not what you know, but it's knowing where to find it. And we found it at ASU Biodesign. This is a computer chip, represents Dr. Stephen Johnston. He is developing an immunosignature blood test, and you heard Dr. Lolu talk about health disparity. His program is designing a pre-stage 1 $99 blood test that can detect prostate, breast, now melanoma, 6-12 months out before it ever becomes stage 1. We've been fortunate enough to raise thousands of dollars behind his research. That's on the front end of trying to bracket cancer. On the back end, I've partnered with the co-founder of Netscape, a gentleman who spoke here last year, Dr. Marty Tenenbaum, who has developed the largest database for clinical trials. A handful of my friends who are currently battling cancer, some stage 4, confer with his scientist when they hit a wall on a chemotherapy. This scientist puts their profile in the database, kicks back to their personal oncologist potential suggestions that could work, and continue to fight the fight. So we are trying to bracket pre-stage 1 and help current stage 3 and 4 cancer patients fight the battle through information management and sharing of information with a group called Cancer Commons, located in Palo Alto. Let's continue now and get into the area on how you interact with patient groups today, and I'll start again with Marie.
Okay. Well, obviously in neurodegenerative diseases, we cut across multiple disorders. And so we have the privilege of working with people like the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the MS Society, Prizes for Life in ALS, essential tremor, etc. So foundations are very important to providing us information. We get involved with some of the local community MS foundations, since that's our first area. We have a patient advisory group as well, because we believe that it's very important to have patients as a part of our team. It's interesting that as we go out to investors, in many cases we have probably 20% of our investors are also either have MS or have somebody in the family that has MS. The second area besides foundations for us is we need blood samples because that's our business. And so more and more the registries become important. A company like ours can't fund these studies alone. And so I would say in multiple sclerosis, they have a best demonstrated practice with a registry that has over 3,000 patients that they work with. So all of us doing research in this area can access that. And so places like Accelerated Cure Project, which is the organization I'm talking about, will be funding a 2,500 patient, we have to call them subjects while they're still in research, for 5 years, and that kind of thing can only be done in these kinds of groups. And then the last example I would give in Parkinson's is we regularly go to conferences, but an example would be the Van Andel Parkinson's conference that's held every year. They have as many patients as they do have clinicians and researchers there. So there's 2 meetings going simultaneous, and parts of those meetings, you know, there's an interchange. So I think those are all examples in our area where we have opportunities to interface with patients.
Neel, let's swing over to you on the group of patients and how you interact in these large numbers.
Great question. Thank you for asking. Our application was meant to be for the physicians. We are only 18 months into the business, and I can see that Mary has done incredible work in terms of connecting with the foundations, with the advisory groups, as well as the patient groups. And we are also following the same traction and timeline. But how we have differentiated ourselves is that we reach out to patients as well as we reach out to physicians and ask them, what do you need apart from the software application, what we are providing at this point of time. And they came back to us and say that there is a lack of communication between patient and physician, because when they come to the hospital, they are able to treat a diagnosed patient. But once they leave the hospital, there is no continuum of care. And that is where we are building our next set of protocols to mitigate that lack of communication or miscommunication, and also work with the patient groups, right from California, Arizona, Minnesota, as well as last 2 months ago, we were at the Epilepsy Pipeline Conference, and they have shown interest to do research and connect all different forms of organizations so that we put patient at the center and have the communication going back and forth. And that's where patient groups comes into the framework, how they can be useful to foundations as well as to startups.
And you showed me the app. It's fascinating, right on your phone.
Yes. So as a millennial myself, we had certain discussions this morning that everyone, including the talent, including the companies, are looking to get all the information at the fingertip. And we really wanted to be at the cutting edge. And we realized that we can only enhance the patient care by having an application so that physician, even if they are sitting here in the room while getting to know something new, something out of the box, they can still provide care to their patients.
Dr. Greenman, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd just springboard off what Neel was saying on continuity of care and patient communications. Since we probably one of the few founders of a telehealth company that actually uses our own software with patients every day. I see patients 3 to 4 online appointments a day, and continuity of care is what we're really focused on. We found that there are other telehealth companies that are out there, but they're kind of virtual doc in the box situations where the doctor's never met the patient. Rather, we looked at it from the other way of how do we keep physicians connected with their patients that are already there in their practice, that the telehealth can be an extension of their practice. And that way, you've got physicians that know those patients much better, so your outcomes are going to be much better. And so that's part of the differentiation for us. And we find that it's through our providers that where we get connected to the patients. And that's the direction we go with it.
One of the things I wanted to discuss in the partnerships that Dorothy Foundation tries to connect with, and I think Diane and Carrie are here from ASU Biodesign, is that we want it to become the money ball of a foundation. We wanted to do for a lot less and still create a difference. We didn't necessarily look at more walks or more ribbons, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we wanted to get to better science. And one of the things that we've tried to do is broker partnerships. Currently, Dorothy Foundation has connected the dots from the American Cancer Society to Marty Tenenbaum, Cancer Commons in his database, and discussions are now taking place about the shared data movement that you hear so much about. His database supplementing the American Cancer Society's database for clinical trials. So we felt that we didn't have to raise millions of dollars and we could still make a difference by forming these partnerships with the hope of getting better information, getting beyond old school standard care, and getting the patient who has to take a proactive role with his or her team to get to better information through this database. And if we can create these partnerships and do it on the cheap, quite frankly, and still get the job done and get that information to patients and their oncologists, that was the approach that we would adhere to, and that's what we're doing at Dorothy Foundation, one step at a time. Let's continue here and hear more from our panels and look at your interaction with the medical community. How does that connect for you, Marie?
So again, we're still in research and development, so we haven't released out to the market yet at this point in time, but the clinicians are obviously key for us. Every one of our clinical studies all have a primary investigator that's actually at a clinical site. So we have an opportunity to meet with the key opinion leaders across the country for these studies. Initially, we have 2 or 3 studies where we have actually funded them, but over time what's happened is as we meet more and more clinicians or more and more researchers out there, they're willing to actually partner with us where we can get added on to their studies. You know, so in the past where we've had to pay a couple $1,000s for a vetted patient to make sure that they fit, now we just get added on, and for nothing more than our own cost and transportation, we can support the clinicians in providing them information. The second way I would say is that it's all about the data. I'd like to pick up on what you had said. Our piece of information is only one piece. You know, it's the combination of our clinical diagnostic information in conjunction with the MRIs, in conjunction with all the clinical setting information, and pulling all of that data together so that we can say, what does this all tell us, and how can this information be more actionable? And so it's the together, and that only comes with the clinician. The clinician is usually at the heart of that, along with the managing of the data.
Neel, go right ahead.
Yeah, we are still young into the healthcare medical community. We are 18 months into the business. However, we have worked with several hospitals in town, such as Mayo Clinic, Phoenix Children's Hospital, as well as we are expanding to California. And we have quickly identified that you have to meet the requirements of stakeholders, and it differs based upon whether it's a private partnership, public partnership, or a community-based hospital. And so we study the medical community, the medical scene, as well as the payer-provider interaction. And then we go to the hospital and say that this is our sweet spot. How can we help you? How can we provide the things which you lack, or which you need, or which you want to make a better prospect in the near future, you know? And our software application completely aligns with the new healthcare reforms which are coming up. So it's the incentives, it's the communication, it's the fingertip touch. The application provides diagnosis in less time than the current systems which are out there. So all this together encompasses a very comprehensible solution which medical communities love, and that's how we are marketing and helping the medical communities here locally in town as well as expanding nationally.
Eric, go right ahead.
Yeah, we just this week went live with one of the largest behavioral health clinics in Arizona and in the Maricopa County region, and part of our engagement was actually going on site with not only our software engineers but our whole team to actually learn what were the use case scenarios as to how they wanted to engage patients and how they were going to see them in follow-up. So we developed something called Clinic Queue, because in the actual clinics they want to be able to go one patient after another. And it was just amazing on this week for us to be able to see on our dashboard watching all these appointments going live from providers that are licensed here in Arizona. One was in Maine, the other is in their home from here. And when you have patients with this underserved population that normally wouldn't be able to be seen, sometimes they don't show up to a clinic, but we can then flex the provider to go to the other clinic just by moving that patient over. It's right done through our simple scheduler. So our actually going on sites, talking with them how they use the system, how they want it to be used. Each clinic has a little bit different case scenario. We see this as use for going into foster care. The one clinic that we went live with this week sees 70,000 plus patients a year. So it's quite a busy clinic, and it was neat to see the software go live with them.
One of the interesting parts of what is old is new again. Back in the 70s, when my mom was diagnosed with advanced breast cancer, she was one of the state of Pennsylvania's first special ed teachers, and she was willing to try everything in her power to get to my high school graduation. And that included some interesting, and I'm curious to get your quick comment on this, psychotherapeutic belief systems a guy by the name of Dr. Carl Symington believed that you shouldn't just be a passive patient. You should have the will to believe that your therapy can work and work effectively. And I believe it extended my mom's life. I say that because just in the last year, interacting with the medical community, we've sponsored Dorothy's Gift at Dignity Health Center and Ironwood Cancer Center. So when you go up on those chemo floors, the patients are listening to psychotherapeutic messages that are suggesting fight the fight, stay positive, and I believe extending their life. So we've been able to try to get in the trenches and create a positive mindset with patients that are in dire straits. I mean, how many of us know people that have been diagnosed with advanced cancers, and what can you do to help? And this has been gratifying because it was a kind of a reinvention of what I found out about as a kid in the 70s that is now back in play here in 2016. Eric?
I couldn't agree more. I had a patient this past week that just learned they was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I've been working with them for a good 10 years, and got a call from the hospital that they were not willing to have a central line put in, and that they didn't want to go ahead with any treatment. And the wife called me, and I went over to the hospital, and after spending about 30 minutes with the gentleman, it was because of that relationship that we've had for the past 10 years that he agreed to start eating, get his central line put in, and I went out in the hall and told the nursing staff, and it was really neat to see their surprise that he was even willing to go ahead with the treatment. And I think that's the importance of telehealth, is the connectivity to the patients and that continuity of care. For example, I had a young woman who has bipolar disorder, and about 3 years ago, she got a septic infection. That resulted in a rapid advancement of sepsis, and she went into a coma. It resulted in both arms and legs being amputated. They didn't think that she was going to survive. She eventually woke up and recovered, and in rehab, what they found is that her mental health issues were coming alive again, and she needed to be seen, but they had no way of transporting her, and it just wasn't even possible. So what we first started doing was we actually put a laptop on her abdomen and logged her into iTel, and I was able to do the first video appointment with her. And over the past year and a half, she's recovered, moved out of rehab, and has now moved into her own independent living apartment. And today we do her follow-up appointments, the majority of them, a couple that she'll come to the office occasionally, but the majority of the appointments she does from her Samsung tablet. She even did one from her Galaxy Android phone. So even with prosthetics, we knew that individuals with disabilities have to be able to use software that is easy for them to engage in and not get lost and not have buttons that they don't know what to press, and that's really kind of how we built the whole platform.
You know, as much as we talk science and technology, part of that holistic approach is the humanness of belief that your therapy can work and will work, and the willingness and psychological belief to fight the fight. I do think that still applies today, along with all this great technology that we're hearing about. We're heading down the home stretch, so I'm going to get to some closing comments that our panel would love to share with you, and we'll start again with Marie, and maybe moving forward.
Yeah, I guess a couple of comments that haven't been brought up from a patient's perspective. In our area of neurodegeneration, it's hard to talk about the patient without talking about the caregiver. That was one of the observations that as I spent more and more time with these foundations, during neurodegeneration, what might start out as a very active patient at 29, it looks totally different by the time they're 70. So we have to think about how our solution is going to also apply to that. The second observation that I would make in how we play in this is we haven't really talked about the payer, and I would say our patients are very aware of payer situation. In an MS patient, they pay $50,000 a year for their therapy. So it's crucial for them to know how that's going to get paid for. And so, you listen to Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's know your numbers. And so we're all about providing numbers that can help them better understand how their disease is progressing.
Neel, please go right ahead.
Yeah, so I would say that the times have changed. We live in a medical setting or a medical community where we all are succumbed to patient-driven healthcare, because now we have seen in such a short time frame that the patients are coming to the physician and asking, hey, can I have this or can we have this? So believe it or not, even if you work on the admin side or the executive side or on the patient-facing side, we all impact patient care. And that is very important, right? And that's how we are leveraging the use of technology, the use of data, the use of the communication, the telemedicine, and everything are coming up together. And we are getting rid of the silos, which we talked about at the start of this session. And that's how the changes are coming. It is beneficial for everyone and each one of us.
Eric?
Yeah, I'd just add that the patient relationship with their provider we've found to be paramount, and that the old notions of telehealth going to rural areas, to our surprise, actually is only one part of telehealth. Actually, in local areas, we have plenty of patients that live in Gilbert that coming up to a Scottsdale appointment can be a 45-minute to an hour-and-a-half drive, which causes time lost from work. It costs them a lot of time and effort. And there's a lot of healthcare, if you have that established relationship with the provider, that can take place via a simple video appointment in 10 to 15 minutes when that provider knows that patient already. And that does a lot to reduce stress and makes the delivery of care that much easier. Patients that come for 30-minute appointments, sometimes we can accomplish in 7 to 10 minutes. Patients just use their time differently.
As we wrap it up, I just want to say that, part of the equation exists for lay people like myself to get behind you. I feel when somebody's diagnosed with cancer, and I'll tell you this very short story. Many, many years ago, when I was single, I took Lynette McClam out to the Forrest Gump movie. We actually went out and had a little bit of a friendship. She fought through a very, very serious brain tumor, numerous surgeries, and now she's an advocate fighting the fight. When anybody says to you, when your friend, your uncle, your brother, your father or mother comes down with a very serious diagnosis, and you say, what can I do? Then look in the mirror and say, I can do something. I could be an advocate. I can start a foundation. I can try to fight the fight. And if we group together with the technology that exists today, with the fabulous talent that you see on this panel and the different ideas and all the talent out there, if we as lay people can support you, we can get there faster. And that to me is the battle cry, is working together, going back to George Post, silos subvert solutions. Let's work together, let's collaborate, and let's all join together. I've told Dr. Lolu that I can certainly, as a member of the media, get the word out on that participation of 150,000 participants. We will do what we can. We need to work together, and it will get us there faster. I want to thank all of you for participating. This has been a fabulous conference. Joan, thank you for keeping me involved, and keep up the great work.